We use the word epic so often that it seems to have lost its power. Everything today seems to be epic, from a concert to a movie to a party to a haircut. However, the term applies primarily to a literary genre. An epic is a long narrative poem usually derived from ancient oral tradition that involves the deeds and adventures of a hero. Further characteristics are as follows. The setting is grand in scope, the characters are being of national, historical, or legendary importance. Style is elevated in tone and language. Supernatural forces often intervene in human actions. The Greek poet Homer introduces elements like stock, epithets, epic similes, the use of an invocation, etc. In his epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey, that will be explored in greater detail in the next chapter. And Endiku slept alone in his sickness. In his bitterness of the spirit, he poured out of his heart to his friend. It was I who cut down the cedar, I who leveled the forest, I who slew Humbaba, and now see what has become of me. Listen, my friend, this is my dream I dreamed last night. The heavens roared and the earth rumbled back in answer. Between them stood before an awful being, the somber-faced man-bird. He had directed on me his purpose. His was a vampire face, his foot was a lion's foot, his hand was an eagle's talon. He fell on me, and his claws were in my hair. He held me fast, and I smothered. Then he transformed me, so that my arms became wings covered with feathers. He turned his stare towards me, and he led me away to the palace of Urkala, the queen of darkness, to the house from which none who enters ever returns, down the road from which there is no coming back. There is the house whose people sit in darkness. Dust is their food and clay is their meat. They are clothed like birds with wings for covering. They see no light. They sit in darkness. I entered the house of dust, and I saw the kings of the earth, their crowns put away forever, rules and princes. All those who once wore kingly crowns and ruled the world in the days of old. They had stood in the palace of the gods, the place of the gods, like Anne and Enel stood out like servants to fetch baked meats in the house of dust, to carry cooked meat and cold water from the waterskin. In the house of dust, which I entered, were high priests and acolytes, priests of the incarnation of ecstasy, and there were servers of the temple, and there was Etana, the king of the dish, whom the eagle carried to heaven in the days of the old. I saw Samukwan, god of cattle, and there was Urkishigal, the queen of the underworld. And Beth Sherry squatted in front of her, she who is reorder the gods keep the books of death. She held a tablet which she read. She raised her head, she saw me and spoke. Who has brought this one here? Then I awoke like a man drained of blood who wanders alone in a waste of ashes, like one whom the bailiff has seized and his heart pounds with terror. Gilgamesh had peeled off his clothes. He listened to the words and wept quick tears. He opened his mouth and spoke to Endiku, who is there in strong Walt Urk, who has wisdom like this. Strange things have been spoken. Why does your heart speak strangely? The dream was marvelous, but the terror was great. We must treasure the dream, whatever for the terror, for the dream has shown the misery comes at last to the healthy man. The end of life is sorrow. And Gilgamesh lamented. Now I will pray to the great gods, for my friend has an ominous dream. The day on which Endiku dreamed came to an end, and he lay stricken with sickness. On the whole day he lay on his bed, and his suffering increased. He said to Gilgamesh, the friend on whose account he had left in the wilderness, Once I ran for you, for the water of life, and now I have nothing. A second day he lay on his bed, and Gilgamesh watched over him, but the sickness increased. A third day he lay on his bed. He called out to Gilgamesh, rousing him up. Now he was weak, and his eyes were blind and weeping. 10 days he lay, and his suffering increased. 11 and 12 days he lay on his bed of pain. Then he called to Gilgamesh, my friend, the great god has cursed me, and I must die in shame. I shall not die like a man fallen in battle. I feared to fall, but happy is the man who falls in battle, for I must die in shame. And Gilgamesh wept over Endiku. With the first light of dawn he raised his voice and said to the counselors of Uruk, Hear me, great ones of Uruk. I weep for Endiku, my friend. Bitterly moaning like a woman mourning, I weep for my brother. O Endiku, my brother, you are the axe at my side, my hand strength, the sword in my belt, the shield before me, a glorious robe, my fairest ornament. An evil fate has robbed me. The wild ass and the gazelle that were father and mother, all of long-tailed creatures that nourished you, weep for you. All the wild things of the plain and pastures, the paths that you loved in the forest of cedars night and day murmur.